talk, real talk, real talk, real talk, real talk.
Welcome to Real Talk for Real Teens, the show where we uniquely combine the information teens need with the entertainment teens want.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Real Talk for Real Teens. I am, as always, your host, Kim Creighton. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today, our guest is Carl Jefferson, and I'll let Carl introduce himself.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carl Jefferson, and I've known Kim for a while now. I am a consultant. I consult to organizations and individuals on really helping them to achieve better outcomes for themselves. And in my business, we call that closing gaps. And the gap is, how do you get from where you are right now to where you desire to be? So I am pretty much versed in a lot of what we call leadership skills. I've got a whole bunch of training in that area, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
All right. Thank you, Carl. So what 21st century skill will we be talking about today?
I want to talk, Kim, about coping today, and I want to try to give you a little bit of perspective on that because in order for us to have, a more deliberate conversation, we want to reduce that down to at least a definition that we can work with. And so I referred to dictionary.com. They've got a very nice definition for the word coping, and they're saying it is to face or deal with responsibilities, problems, or difficulties, especially successful successfully in a calm or adequate manner. So, what does all that mean? And what I do with individuals and teams, I learn quite a bit fairly often that many of us, sometimes myself included, we're not always so very well versed in this whole business of coping. And that is really, how do you get through what you're essentially going through in a manner that is calm? And so that's what I wanted to share as a 21st century skill.
All right, that's great. That is a major skill, and actually it's a skill that I added to that list.
Oh, good. This is good.
Yeah. The list actually consists of, they call it the 4 C's. So if you look it up, they call it 4 C's for workforce readiness or whatever, and they're actually communication, collaboration, creativity, and creativity. Communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and so I added coping, curiosity, international education, and technical education, because I find that so many, you can have great communication, you can have all that in place. If you don't know how to cope when the things aren't going as you expected, all that just goes out the window.
So here's why it goes out the window. The first time that you have an interaction with another human being and they leave that conversation not happy with you, they will never forget it. And so it immediately damages your current reputation and your future reputation. And so what I try to tell people to understand is, don't allow yourself to get what we call triggered. Instead, go through the process, try to leave that conversation or that interaction without really letting the other person know that you're not extremely disappointed or that you haven't coped well. Because many times you may kind of burn a bridge that you may need to go back over, or you may need that connection through another person. I think what we understand right now, Kim and everybody, is that through social media, we are always constantly connected. And so you don't want to have, an unnecessarily inappropriate situation with someone, and the real outcome is that you just didn't cope well. I think bad things happen to us all the time, but the reality is it's our own responsibility. If you think about that definition, it's our responsibility to kind of get through an awkward situation. And the fact of the matter is, life will present lots and lots and, thousands and thousands of uncomfortable situations, and the best thing that we can do is just try to pass through them by just showing a high level of coping skills, which is a skill. You just don't get this overnight, Kim. It's something you really, you have to work at it.
Practice. Yeah,
you've got to practice it, and I know we'll talk a little bit later on, but there's some things, or I've got a list of things that I think that can really help people if they're struggling with coping. And when I say coping, I don't mean anger or anger management. I just really mean, how do you move through a situation that is happening and you're still composed, you're still calm, you're still you're not triggered. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made that clear, because I find that I'm often talking to young people, and I let them blow up. They do whatever they have to do, and then I come back and address it, because I'll say, let's sit down and talk about this. So this is what happened. You responded this way. I said, if I did not know you, what do you think my response would be to you in the future? Would I go out, because based on this response that you had, would I do anything for you? Because I'm always saying, you never know who you're going to meet. And I'm telling you, young people, you will need somebody before they need you. Trust me. And so you never want to, and people are moved so much. So I give this example of so you just blew up at me. What if you go to you have this dream job, you walk into the interviewer, you have it, all you have to do is meet with the interviewer, and I'm sitting across the desk from you. How do you, and it starts triggering. So if you don't want that to be the situation you're in, how can you back up? I mean, and people going, like you have said, people going to have these long memories. It's not like they're going to be like, oh, that happened 3-4 years ago. No. You would hope they do, but most people don't. They don't have that well developed. They're going to hold it against you. And so let's back up 3-4 years, and we had our initial situation. How could you have handled that? Well, yes, anger is a healthy emotion. It's how you manage that, or how you manage your sadness, or how you manage whatever that is, that determines, that has impact on the next 3 dominoes that are right in front of you.
Right. I mean, if I were to add to that, the fact of the matter is, and Kim, this comes from my background with studies, graduate level studies in psychology and in business, and even doctoral studies, and it all comes down to the same thing, and that is, most people that you will ever experience, no matter where you are, most people are trying to get what they want, and they're trying to get it first. And so the moment that you have a discussion with another person, the both of you most probably are absolutely trying to do the same thing. And that's an alternative. If you think that when you leave your house, you go to work, you go to school, you go to buy a candy bar, you go pick up a book, we are all on this journey of trying to accomplish the things that we want to do. And so because we're always in transit for that, that's always going on, it is a higher skill set to say, in order for me to really get through this or to get what I want, I just need to have this posture that is always of a calming nature. That will make you an immediate hero. That will make you an immediate outlier by just, understanding that I don't have to get triggered in this situation. I hear exactly what you're saying. You're trying to get what you want to see. We're negotiating that. I'm probably not as interested in what you want from me, but I can still be diplomatic. I can still be calm. I can still be reserved. I can be elegant. I can be well-spoken. And you just get out of that conversation, and you're okay. My experience, especially with young people, Kim, who are kind of getting the skill set is, they haven't paid a whole lot of attention to it. And I remember when I was very young, I didn't either. It's a higher level of maturity.
Yeah.
But when you see it in action, it is just such a beautiful and a precise thing. It's just, it doesn't mean that you're surrendering or that you're giving in. I want to be clear about that. It doesn't mean you're subordinated or you're subservient or you're giving in or that you're not strong or that you're weak. It's just that you have an attitude of consciousness that just connects you with other things that are just above being seen as someone who can't handle the heat or who can't manage pressure or who can't deal with conflict. And it also, this among to me, this is the one 21st century skill that most
definitely impacts your physicality, definitely impacts your mental state, definitely impacts how your body functions. And that's why I added it. If you aren't able to cope in everyday life, if things happen to you, like one of my jobs, I used to work at the Chicago Board of Trade. Okay. And that was before computers. That was before they went to computers. So you have people screaming all day. You have people, and that's the job. That was just the essence of the job. They're calling out, you got to buy, you got to sell, and I'm the person who's taking all this information and making that board work. So if I make any mistakes, that has to do with somebody's money. I mean, literally. And so everybody's tensions are high, and that was one place that I think was one of the first places I truly started consciously focusing on coping skills, because at that time I was getting migraines. And no medication was helping, and it was because that situation was so stressful. I could go in. You make a very good point. I had to cuss out people on a daily basis. Like, dude, calm down, you know.
Wow. So here's what happens with a young adult and even an adult. Generally, when we're not coping well, the first thing we start to do is we literally stop breathing. We hold our breath. Very unconsciously, Kim. And the moment you start holding your breath, you're really depriving the body of oxygen that it needs to do all of its things to move the blood around. And then generally, if you're in heated conversations, you're constantly holding your breath. And when you do start speaking, you're speaking so aggressively, you start to feel even more uncomfortable. So this whole business about coping is really an approach to, just get the body to relax, not to tense up, and just to be in the moment with the person, understanding that you're not there forever. They won't have your attention for the next, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 50 minutes for life. So you just don't want to leave any negative impression that will last far longer than your interaction with them.
Exactly. And I like how you just say that. You don't want to leave an impression that lasts far longer than the interaction. You do not want to leave a trail of slime from that interaction and have that follow you into the future. You don't want to do that.
No, because
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say no, because reputation is everything. It is important to have a very good, solid reputation. Your word is everything. Before anything else, there's your word and what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to pick up this conversation. And I want to get into, because I know you said you had a list. So if you have more than 3, we might want to start that now, because this is very important to me. So let's see when we come back, okay?
All right, that would be great.
Okay.
Follow us on Facebook at Real Talk for Real Teens and on Twitter at RTFRT Radio.
All right, we're back. We're talking to Carl Jefferson, and we're talking about coping. So how many things are on your list there, Carl?
Really, I've got 3 things that I think are just the catalyst for of good coping. There are some other things, but just my top 3 I really want to share with your audience.
Yeah, and I'm thinking I want to start that now instead of having, kind of cramming in at the end. So let's get started, and then we can have a conversation, a more in-depth conversation about these. So go ahead.
So I'm happy to do it. And, one of the things that I do in my work, I try to base a lot of my talking points on stuff that's very well researched. It's been in practice for a while. So I'm going to give you a couple of points that they exist in theory in different schools of thought, but they're very nicely captured in a bit of work that's done by this guy that's called Daniel Goleman. And Daniel Goleman is this guy who created this whole argument around what he calls emotional intelligence. And that's just a long way of saying that while we oftentimes talk about book smart from an intelligent perspective, we really need to have a bit of control of our emotions. And so that's where these 3 points are going to come out of, Kim. But the first one, definitely it's been talked about for a while, but it's this whole business of being self-aware. And I'll just say it again. It's this whole business of being self-aware. And that means, what do you already know about yourself? yourself? And are you taking any time to really find out who you are, what you like to do, what essentially makes you happy, what makes you unhappy? But it's just simply being self-aware, because the argument is, if you are self-aware about yourself, you know the kinds of relationships that you allow yourself to be in, be they employment relationships, personal relationships, strategic relationships. Anytime, my work says anytime you're ever in a transaction with a company, an individual, that's a short-term relationship. And the more self-aware you are, Kim, that will help you. I'll give you the technical definition. It's called knowing one's emotions, strengths, weaknesses, drives, values, and goals, and their impact on others. So the argument is, if you know a whole lot more about yourself, then you should be able to negotiate or manage relationships with other people. So that's the first one. The second one, kind of similar to the self-awareness, but it's this whole thing that's called self-regulation. And it's really closely aligned with coping, but just slightly different. And the actual definition, and there's a whole book of studies and theories on self-regulation, but it just simply means controlling or redirecting disruptive emotions and impulses. And so some key indicators of that would be, if you're trustworthy, are you practicing integrity? What's your comfort with ambiguity? So self-regulation says you are the first person that's responsible for controlling what you do, how you say it, how you show up, what you look like. And my experience in business, and I've been doing it for 17 years, and right now I work essentially with a lot of executives, but even at the top-tier executive level, most people are still developing their own approach to self-regulation. And when you think of that, you're like, wow, I mean, you should really be able to control your own emotions. However, when we look at the news or when we look at different TV shows, and you think about that definition of self-regulation, which is all about controlling or redirecting, you can see that most people, we really are still working in this whole area of self-regulation. So that's the second one, Kim. And then the final one is what I call social skills. Even with social media, even with interpersonal interactions, we really have to have some amazing social skills. As I think about the job market, Kim, and I think the way new jobs are being created and how they are much more electronic and using lots of technology, some of us are beginning to fall a little short on social skills. We can get a lot of things done through email, through texting, and we're not really getting good social skills. And so there's a good definition of social skills. This is what Daniel Goleman says, and it's called managing relationships to move people in the desired direction. So that's also another way of saying influencing, and that means how good of an influencer are you? How persuasive are you? So that when you are negotiating or managing these relationships, really trying to get what you want out of other people and what you want out of life, are you any good at it? Do you have the kind of social skills that is really savvy and it's really intriguing and it makes people really want to be with you or do business with you? One thing that I know, especially for those teen entrepreneurs out there, social skills is how you turn contacts into contracts. And if I said it differently, Kim, it is really, really important to understand that if you're going to be on the planet and alive, you really need to know how to get people to like you, because we only do business with people we like, we know, we trust, and we respect. And so if your soft skills really don't help me to like you or understand you, I'm probably not going to want to be with you. And the moment I don't want to be with you, you're probably going to miss out on getting what you want. So those are my three things.
Well, I want to address each one in more depth. So let's go back to self-aware was the first.
Yes, self-awareness.
And as I tell young people, spend time figuring out who you are, what you value, and what your boundaries are. If you can do those times, and it's not a destination. It's not like you can sit down one day and write all this out, because it ebbs and flows. It's an evolution as you grow, as you get more information, as you have more experience with relationships and practice with relationships, it develops. But there's some key core things that you want to that you stand for, that you're about, that your boundaries are, and it kind of goes. One of the things is really analyzing how you want to experience the world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use that as a litmus test, as a guide for a lot of things, that will help you in a lot of situations. I remember doing an exercise years ago, and never would have thought this would really still impact my life. But I did exercise with a class that I was training. I said, let's come up with 3 adjectives which would describe how we want to experience this world that we live in. And I came up with peace, joy, and prosperity.
Wow.
And that was just, it was impactful then, but today, even in my business, when I'm dealing in relationships or where I'm dealing, like you said, there's someone saying something to me that I totally disagree with, and yeah, I could go there being extremely rude or whatever. I have to sit back and does this bring me peace, joy, or prosperity? If my reacting in the way that my carnal mind wants to, react, is that going to get me any of that? So it has nothing to do with the other person. It's all about me. And that goes back to what you're saying. It's all about me. And so this relationship or this experience going to give me that? And that is at least the beginning of how to start developing that self-awareness, because that can sound so touchy-feely and people don't know how to grasp on it. Mm-hmm. But if you can come up with 3 adjectives of how you want to experience your world, how you want, and it won't happen every day. You don't have it all the time. But just as a starting point, that really could be helpful.
Yeah, and the other way, Kim, you can approach it is you can ask yourself questions. I know people say, you shouldn't be talking to yourself. You shouldn't be standing there having a conversation with yourself. The fact of the matter is you cannot control having your own thought patterns unless you're in control of what you're thinking about. And one of the things that we do so often is we begin thinking about other things and other people long before we start thinking about, what do I know about myself? So I make the point that one way you can deal with, this whole business around self-awareness is just ask yourself some good questions. Do I like me? Do I know what I stand for? Do I know what makes me happy? Do I know where I'm going? And if you
do I like this job? Do I like this relationship?
Do I like this? Do I like life? Am I a forgiving person? That will get you, some clarity. Now, if most of your answers are no, we've probably got a little bit of a problem, but it's just good to start off that says, what do I like? Do I like the beach? Do I like hiking? And when you do that analysis of yourself, if you're not in an environment where you can get all of those things accomplished, you really want to start moving in that direction.
All right, and now let's move to
regulation, right? Self-regulation.
Yes, self-regulation. And that's something that we see all the time. We watch Love and Basketball Wives. We watch
Jennifer,
Real Housewives. We watch all those stuff. Those people have obvious issues with self-regulation.
They do.
And yet.
Fact of the matter is.
Yet. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, fact of the matter is, it's hard work, right? People trigger us all the time, but you have to deal with that. And this is the kids I know this is the one thing that gets on my nerves. She made me. No. Right. Take responsibility for your part in whatever happened, and let's move on. That's right, Kim. You don't want to give someone else power over you. Don't give another human being power over you. And if you're of the impression that something that someone else did who's outside of your body space can control you, you're not practicing self-regulation. Whatever impulses they send your way, you can receive them. And the moment you receive them, you can cancel them out and you can dismiss them. That's all you do. It's like you don't have to go cray-cray, right? You're just hey, I'm not giving you that power.
And we're not saying be disrespected. We're not saying just take anything that anybody gives you. No, we're not. But there's a way that you can develop to say, hey, that says just as easily, get the hell out of my face, without having to say, get the hell out of my face. I mean,
if you're in a discussion and someone says something, you can say, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm going to need to interrupt you. We're not aligned. I really don't want to go forward in this conversation anymore. And just end it. You know, find your own new personal space and say, we're not aligned. I appreciate what you have to say. I can respect what you have to say, but what you're sharing with me, I'm not aligned with you. We're in disagreement, and I'm going to move on. End of story.
Exactly. And so we're going to take our last little break, and then we'll spend the last moments together talking about the social skills.
Absolutely.
New or unknown music artists, we need you for the show. If you'd like your own mini concert, please send a request for information to realtalkforrealteens@gmail.com.
Okay, as we end our conversation with Carl Jefferson, we want to now talk about his third tip is social skills. And there could be a family sitting in the living room with the television on and everybody on their own device and no one's speaking.
Right.
No one's interacting. No one's engaging. And I find that I guess because I was the only child and I moved a lot, so I had to I have well-developed social skills because I had to. You know, when you're moving a lot, you have to meet new people. It becomes a challenge, and so you just have to make do. You have to figure out how to make that happen.
Exactly.
And that also, and didn't know it then, but it has played heavily on the relationships I have. I mean, just like you said, you and I have known each other forever. And we've known each other for a while, and it was just out of, hey, we met each other at church, and we connected, and because both of us have very good social skills, are we in each other's face all the time? No. We might not see each other for years, but when we see each other, it becomes this, hey, how you doing? We can have a great conversation, and we keep moving.
Yeah, and if I said it any differently, you are only as strong as your last interaction with someone. So even if you haven't seen someone in years, your brain is going to attend to the last interaction that you had. So it is to everyone's advantage just to make it the most positive interaction that you could possibly have with another person. And that could mean just look them in their eyes. When they leave, bid them farewell. Shake their hand, give them a hug. Tell them that you hope to see them soon and just say thank you and just move on. I mean, that's just good, decent social skills, and it's priceless.
Yeah, I like how you put that. You're only because you're about to pass the last interaction, because you're right. If you see someone that you haven't seen, you're walking down the street or you're in the mall and you come across somebody who you haven't seen in a while, the first thing you do think of is like that last conversation or whatever. Because usually that's where you start the next conversation, if there's a conversation to be had.
Exactly. And the other thing that I like to tell people is manage your endings. Whenever you're terminating or ending something, just manage it really well. Just try it, even if it was really sour, it didn't work out. For the last 30 seconds or 5 seconds, just manage it well. Just say, I get it. Thank you. We didn't agree this time. It didn't work, but I bid you well. And I hope the best for you in everything that you do.
And so I'm going to give an example of that. So you're in school, high school, college, and you receive a grade that you thought was unfair. It does not do you well. It is not in your favor to go and huff and puff in that teacher's face. What you need to do in using these coping skills is that self-aware, check yourself. Did I do the best I could on this project? Where are there some of their critiques valid? I mean, self-regulation. If they say, hey, it is what it is or whatever, then you can find a way to say, hey, it could be in your head, this person's a jerk, but you're not going to tell that person. That person has your grade in their hand. And then that social skills. If you've spent that time in that classroom developing a relationship with that instructor, instead of being late to class and not showing up, talking during class, they're more apt to be open to any, any discrepancies, or it's just listening to what you have to say, even if they don't change their mind.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Carl, so much for being here, and I really appreciate you. I really love, I remember the emotional intelligence stuff when I was getting my master's in training and development. And so I love, because we trick our kids, we trick these young people, and it's been going on forever, to thinking that intellectual intelligence is the only thing. And I find so many of these AP honors kids, gifted kids, and they can't cope because they get a grade on an exam and they freak out. They cannot cope. They cannot handle it because for them it's an indication of something wrong with them, their intelligence, or something is not right. And so you really were able to bring that home, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it, Kim. Thank you so much. I had a great time, and I wish you the best in everything you do. And look, I bid you well.
And I accept that, and I bid you well as well, sir.
All right. Until the next time, thank you.
All right. Take care.
Sure. Bye for now.
The Real Talk for Real Teens community is the premier membership organization for young professionals. Real Talk for Real Teens community provides the most comprehensive resources and education designed to advance the skills, integrity, and value of its members as professionals. Become a member at www.rtfrtc.com. Thank you for listening, and join us every Sunday through Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for more Real Talk for Real Teens.